Welcome back, you guys. Today I'm going to show you my birthday cake this year, which was a purple ombre ube flavored birthday cake. It's quite a mouthful. I started off by making 4 ombre cake layers using my favorite vanilla layer cake recipe. I added in a bit of gel food coloring and also 2 teaspoons of ube extract. Ube is a purple yam, and it's really popular in Filipino culture. It's used in a lot of desserts. I first discovered it when I had halo halo for the first time, which is kind of like a shaved ice dessert. It's super delicious. It kind of reminds me of taro, and it was really the only flavor that I could think of that's purple flavored that I like. My only other option was grape, and I was not about to make myself a grape birthday cake. I'm frosting this cake with a coconut buttercream, which is just my American buttercream recipe that I added 2 teaspoons of coconut extract to. The 2 flavors are both kind of tropical in my mind, and I think they really go well together. So once my layers were stacked, I added on my thin crumb coat, which I then chilled in the fridge for about 10 minutes. If you want to speed this up, you can put it in the freezer for about 5 minutes. And once it was firm to the touch, I started working on my second layer of frosting. Sometimes I put my frosting into piping bags, sometimes I just add it to the cake straight out of the bowl using an offset spatula. There's really no right or wrong way to do it, it's just a little bit easier when you use piping bags. They really help you get it evenly spread all the way around the cake, and it makes it a little bit easier to get a nice smooth finish. So since this was my birthday cake and I am going to be painting on the sides, I really wanted it to be perfectly smooth. So I wanted to take the extra step and use piping bags just to make the whole process a bit easier. Another fun feature that I added to this cake was a rustic top edge, and this look is inspired by the royal wedding cake. So to do this, I first spread my frosting around the top of the cake and let it overhang the sides a bit. And once I had smoothed out the top to be really perfectly flat, I used my bench scraper to go around the sides again to push that overhanging frosting back up to create that fun kind of jagged look. So my first time doing this, my edges were a little bit too tall and not quite as uniformly jagged as I wanted them to be, which sounds silly, but I decided to do a second round of that flattening out the top and then using my bench scraper to push back up the frosting. And I was really happy with the way it looked after my second pass around. As you can see, this kind of extra frosting edge is slightly taller than the top of the cake, and it really gives such a beautiful texture around that top perimeter. I placed the cake back in the fridge to allow the buttercream to crest while I prepared my edible paint. So for this, I just used a little bit of vodka and some purple gel food coloring, which I mixed together, and I then used a cosmetic wedge to just gently dab on that gel food coloring onto the side of the cake. It's really important that your cake is thoroughly chilled and that your buttercream really has crusted, and your cake might need up to an hour to allow that to happen, but it's worth the wait because if you don't do that, you can end up denting your frosting and you're going to ruin those perfectly smooth sides. I added on a few different layers of frosting here, and throughout the process I did pause and chill the cake again because it was starting to get a little bit too warm and soft. But once I felt like I had achieved the color that I was after, I kind of made some sweeping motions with my little cosmetic wedge to even out the color a little bit. I didn't want it to be perfectly even, but I did want it to look somewhat uniform. The last step here was just to use a damp paper towel to clean up any paint that got onto my cake base. Since this is my birthday cake, I wanted to take it to the next level with some edible gold. So I have here some 23 karat gold sheets that I ordered on Amazon. And I'm using a clean paintbrush to very carefully place small bits around the top of that painted section. I definitely have a love-hate relationship with edible gold. It's just so finicky and so delicate. If you drop even a little bit onto your counter, I feel like it just suctions and you can ruin a whole sheet. And edible gold is somewhat expensive, so you really want to be careful as you're doing this. Once I painstakingly finished that border, I prepped my fresh flowers to add on top of the cake. I found this gorgeous assorted purple bouquet at my local flower shop, and whenever you're using flowers on a cake, you want to try to use organic flowers that are pesticide free, and you also want to be sure to wrap the stems using some floral tape. This step is super important because if you don't do it, the fluids from the stems can leach into your cake or into your frosting and leave a bitter taste, and that is not what you want when you're eating cake. I got my flower tape from my flower shop, but I think you can order it online as well if you can't find it there. Flower tape is kind of unique because it's not super sticky, But you want to start about 1 inch from the base of the stem, wrap all the way around to the base of the stem, and then really pinch the bottom to ensure that all of those fluids are going to stay inside of that flower stem. Once all of my flowers are wrapped, it was time to add these on top of my cake. So in order to do that, I like to start by adding some buttercream to the top of my cake, and this just really helps secure the flowers and keep them in place. I always start kind of with the smaller flowers around the edge of the cake and then slowly work my way up to the top. The bouquet that I got had one really beautiful peony in it, so I saved that to add to the very top of the cake. I also added a little bit of greenery around the base just to brighten the look. And that was it. This birthday cake actually had quite a few components to it, but I was so happy with how it turned out. It's definitely a little bit of a different look, but I was so ready to try something different for my birthday this year, and I also was so happy with how the ombre layers ended up turning out. So as you can see, you have a beautiful gradient there, and the cake also tasted amazing. I really loved the ube and the coconut together, and I highly recommend trying ube if you haven't. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that I'll see you guys again on my next video.